Back on Locked On NHL Game Night alongside Tyler Feldman. I'm Cam Stewart. Guys, be sure, of course, to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Give us your Stanley Cup Final predictions. I want to see those in the comments below. What's like the biggest change in these teams as to what is going to lead to one of them eventually lifting the cup here in the next couple of days and weeks? You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts as well. We've talked about the Oilers. Now let's shift to the defending champs. The Cats are here for the third year in a row. They probably could have got it done a lot quicker in last year's series, but it turns out to be a classic. Yet there's a bit of a shakeup in this Panthers core, and it feels like they have shaken it to absolute perfection. Armando Velez of Locked On Panthers on what makes this year's team different and possibly even scarier.
The Panthers have some new blood in this year's Stanley Cup Final. What is up, guys? Armando Velez here from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, here to quickly tell you how the Panthers are different compared to last year. The Panthers have a core that they have identified that most of their contracts will go up to 2030. But the Panthers, in this window that they're in, they had to make some changes and get some talent on the cheap. And the big contributors for the Panthers have been trade deadline acquisitions for the most part. Brad Marchand being on that third line as the Panthers got him at the buzzer, and what him, Anton Lundell, and Eetu Luostarinen have done, especially in the games that have clinched the series, multi-point games in Tampa Bay and Toronto, and getting the third goal in Game 5 against Carolina. Seth Jones was very impactful in Game 7 against the Leafs and has been a big part of clicking with the Panthers, especially when Aaron Ekblad was suspended. We'll break all of this down and more on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Your team every day.
Look, Tyler, Armando said it, not me. I'm going to talk about it, but Armando brought up Brad Marchand, and we've talked about it a couple of times in this postseason, right? That trade deadline ends up being huge. Seth Jones has been massive for them in this postseason, especially as Armando described in that Toronto series, late in that Toronto series as well. Brad Marchand led that series in points as a 37-year-old. So this is a big kind of difference, even though it's on the lower levels. No Brandon Montour. Now you got Seth Jones. No Vlad Tarasenko. Now you got Brad Marchand. If they don't make those deals at the trade deadline, are we still talking about the Panthers being in a third straight Stanley Cup Final?
Maybe. Probably not, though. All the moves they've made, though, that were just discussed, makes you forget about the guys that aren't there anymore. And I do need to say, I think I jumped the gun on Stolarz in the first segment talking about the Oilers, when really it's a situation with the Panthers. So that's on me. I don't know how that slipped. But even in between the pipes, Sergei Bobrovsky, that trust in what he's been able to do. Stolarz was able to carve out his own great season up in Toronto. That worked out for him. But now in this situation, to every point that's been made so far, this Florida Panthers team, it's almost revamping, but in a way that made the team stronger, bringing guys that really fit the system, fit that culture that they've created down in South Florida.
Yeah, and obviously Marchand definitely fits into that. They now shoot the plastic rats at him because he's born to be a Panther. Oh, that grates on me. But anyway, you look at that, like Tarasenko was a fine player, right? I mean, a good bottom six center. They won the Stanley Cup. But the two guys on either side, with Lundell and Luostarinen, were so big in that postseason last year. They've been still pretty big this year. And you add a Brad Marchand instead. That third line has been deadly. And it's covered up a lot of things, one of which being Matthew Tkachuk is still hurt here, if not injured. And I know we've seen a lot of fans in the comments talk about our Leon Draisaitl takes about how he was hurt last year. He was. And again, a lot of people are hurt in the Stanley Cup Final. A lot. Matthew Tkachuk misses pretty much the back half of the regular season. He's playing hurt at the Four Nations. Doesn't come back till right before Game 1 of the postseason, maybe. And he's still producing, but it feels like he's not at 100%. A lot of other guys have stepped up. Does he need to be back to vintage Matthew Tkachuk for the Panthers to repeat in this series?
Hard to say because they've been able to get the job done with him not at 100% right. throughout these whole playoffs. So the Florida Panthers are plenty deep enough and have several other guys that can step up in his absence, but he's still producing. I don't know what the expectations are for Matthew Tkachuk, but what he's been able to accomplish both in point total in these playoffs, but also just what he brings to the table. I'm not sure you're ever going to hear an excuse from him saying that he's too injured to play, especially this time of year. So what he brings to the team, the aura, the energy, the culture, it starts with him. So 100% or not, he's playing. I'm sure you're going to have to strap him into a chair to prevent him from actually getting out on the ice, because that's just the mentality that I feel he plays with when I watch him on the ice.
Yeah, and even when they've been down, obviously not down and out, but even when they were down in this postseason, down 2-0 against Toronto, like Tkachuk was still not at 100%. He still wasn't producing. It's not like Tkachuk had this Messier Game 6 94 and got them back in the series. It was the other guys, and Marchand scores the game winner. I mean, lest we forget, they were down 2 goals twice in that game. That was very, very close to being a 3-0 series lead for Toronto. I mean, they could have found a way to blow it anyway, but it was really that close to having a stranglehold on the series. And looking at this Cup final run, it's like they've barely broken a sweat. Is that too harsh to say? Like, they didn't at the back half of that Toronto series, like once it got to 2-2, you're like, Florida's going to win this series. Even going back to Game 7 in Toronto, I think a lot of people were like, Florida's still got this. And it's like they've hardly broken a sweat. Do you think the Oilers are going to give them the best run for their money here in the final like they did last year?
As a hockey fan, I'd love to see that. We've talked about on almost every show this week, for the sake of Connor McDavid and the entire country of Canada, how important this series, this Cup final is for so many parties involved. This Edmonton team is talented. I'd argue the Oilers have more skilled guys, more playmakers than Florida. However, Florida probably, you could make a really strong argument, has the deeper and more well-balanced team.
And maybe a better system, to be fair.
In a more centralized culture. You know what you're getting with the Panthers. They also have a stronger goaltender, or at least a more consistent goaltender. So how will all those different aspects of what makes each team unique come together in this Stanley Cup final? I'm not sure, but I definitely think that the Edmonton Oilers should give the Florida Panthers their toughest run here in the Stanley Cup final. I mean, go back to the first round when I had Tampa Bay beating Florida.
Same here. Here. Hand up.
And now I'm the crazy one. I guess you are too, Cam.
Yeah.
Because would they win in 5?
5 games. It wasn't really close.